So, Mark, did you see that a Starbucks burned down at Newark Airport? All those poor travelers waking up for their early flights and no coffee in sight.
Yeah, and they had shut it down for several hours, so the delays and everything. Even the new terminal, and it's a nice terminal. Even the new terminal in Newark is a hot mess. At least it wasn't like the porta potties lighting on fire. Could you imagine that smell?
I mean, what is it with Newark, though? No matter what they do, they build a nice new terminal. They still can't have nice things.
That's true. It's Newark, man.
So I have a perfect job for you, Mark, to be the CEO of Ramada, and not the CEO, the chief executive officer, but the chief eats officer. And they're going to send one lucky traveler around the world, give him a $10,000 travel stipend, $5,000 in cash, 21 nights of accommodation. Plus, you get Wyndham Diamond status.
I love that Wyndham keeps coming up with these really unique and weird promos. Gets their name out there, like the unlimited travel pass one. They've done something similar like this before. Like you get to eat cheese and travel or something. Growing up, we would drive down to Florida and we would always stop at a Ramada every time. Like it was in Tennessee or something like that. It was like my favorite hotel, but I called it the Ramada. And funny enough, you cut this out, but you started this by just reading it Ramada.
Which I've never
But
said
yeah,
it like that before. I don't know where
yeah,
the heck that came
you
from. It's been so
you
long
got
since
like
I uttered those words.
yeah, I haven't seen one like on the street in forever. It feels like it's like a dying brand, but used to be an okay hotel brand, at least to 10-year-old Mark or whatever. But no, this is kind of fun. I wonder if it's like, do they just give you the 10,000 expecting that to cover travel? And then could we use miles and points to earn, to pay up for our flights and everything and keep the cash? I think that'd be way more enticing versus just the 5,000 to spend on when you're like in the area on everything else that's happening. Of course, you have to do a TikTok video, and I hate TikTok. We talked about this before, so I'm like, you know what? I'm out.
Hey, they're looking for influencers to promote their brand. I mean, this is really what this is a sideways way to get influencers to try out to get this job, basically. You have to be a resident of the 50 United States or Canada, excluding Quebec. What's wrong with Quebec? I don't know what's going on there.
They
And
say
then you have to be
Ramada
able to,
there.
yeah, you have to be able to travel between April and June of next year, and you have to be proficient on social media. Like I said, this is more of a job posting than anything else. And yeah, a lot of people going to try out. I think we're too old.
Yeah, and I should say you could send an email video if you don't have TikTok, but I'm guessing if you don't have TikTok, you're not going to get picked. Like they want a TikTok or Instagram, and you're probably gonna have a decent amount of followers. They might as well just say person with most followers is going to get this job. The funny thing is we never hear about it. Like I don't remember ever seeing the winners in that stuff being like promoted everywhere. I like the way Arby's did it, where they did the Hawaii totally chance luck, and then they had their own social media team like promote it and stuff, and that got the name out there everywhere. I think that gets picked up way more than these things where because everybody has a shot and you saw it on all the different news outlets, even like Good Morning America, stuff like that was talking about it. So I think that's the better route to go for these companies.
So American Express put out this travel destination list, basically the hot upcoming travel destinations. And one of the interesting things from this report that they released is a study conducted by American Express found that 72% of millennial and Gen Z travelers are more likely to book hotels that offer credit card rewards. And 70% are interested in a credit card with a collection of hotel benefits across the world, obviously trying to sell their FHR and all of that. But it's interesting to see the way people view hotels. And they talked about a number of up and coming travel destinations. Moab, Utah. I've seen that on a few lists recently. Macau, China. I'm surprised. I love Macau. Surprised to see that one kind of trending.
Yeah, it does seem like it's been getting more popular though. Kind of like with social media, like nobody had heard of the Maldives, 20 years ago, but everybody in social media starts posting from it and stuff, and it becomes this big thing. It used to be only the rich and famous would go there, and now with miles and points, other people go there. So it became like this thing when nobody had heard of it before. So I feel like that's kind of Macau. Like it's so beautiful and has so many cool like video spots that you could post on social media that it's kind of like growing in popularity because of that.
Some other cities on the list: Brisbane, Australia; Brittany, France; Koh Samui, Thailand, which I feel like has been a pretty hot destination for a while; Nikko, Japan; Sao Paulo, Brazil; Sun Valley, Idaho for skiing. Apparently that's a nicer place to ski than other places around there. So yeah, it's an interesting list. I like this sort of stuff because American Express puts the resources into sort of getting this data, and they have the customer base. So it's more than just some random list that somebody made up. So I like it for that.
Yeah, I mean, most of these lists are usually just some person in their basement Googling stuff. So they have the booking. Yeah, I mean, they book a ton of travel for people. They have the credit card, so they know where people are going and they can see the trends and stuff. So yeah, there was, several that I'm not surprised to see, and then a couple that I'm like, what? Oh, okay, that's cool.
So back in the day, all Hyatt places had free breakfast. You just booked the Hyatt place, no matter where you booked it, no matter who you were, you got free breakfast. And then over the last few years, they've experimented with some changes, including requiring you to book direct in order to get breakfast. And then in 2020, at some properties, they started charging for breakfast if you weren't a Hyatt Elite member. And I guess that test is still going on. Gary Luff discovered there's still hotels implementing this, including ones that are still running the charge from 4 years ago, but no announcement's been made. This hasn't been a whole company-wide policy, but the Hyatt Place Sacramento Roseville just started an $11 charge for breakfast if you're not an elite. Let's hope they get rid of the powdered scrambled eggs if they're going to charge.
Yeah, this is so weird. Like I get the having to book direct to get it. If you're booking through an Expedia or something, they're paying 20, 30%, whatever it be, cut out of that room, right? So if it's $100 room, they lose 20 or 30 bucks off the top. That's the money that covers breakfast. So if they're not booking direct, then they can, cover the breakfast. So I understood that change. I think it was a smart one. I'm surprised others haven't done something similar, but you also have to like man it and make sure that those people aren't getting in there. I've never been to a Hyatt place and had like a key card czar sitting there checking your room or anything. So you have to pay somebody to do that, and that's tough too. So this is like another level, and people don't know about it. They think Hyatt Place, they think everybody gets breakfast, and now you show up and you don't get it. And Gary makes a good point. He's like, it's not going to stop bookings. It's not even a good test because it's not like people are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to stay there because I'm going to have to pay the $11. They don't know that. If anything, it affects them booking a Hyatt Place somewhere else in the future that doesn't even charge for breakfast. And $11 seems reasonable for breakfast. It really isn't that bad. But when then you look at the food that you get, you're like, oh, I don't even think it's worth it.
And a lot of Hyatt places aren't really set up for this. The older Hyatt places, it's all kind of out in the lobby, and it's very difficult for them to maintain order. I have been in some places where they're trying to figure out who's eligible and who's not based on who booked direct, and it's a sort of mess. I've been to the Hyatt Place in Kyoto where they have a separate breakfast area, and that one is enforced, and they have a person at the front, and they have a list of who's eligible and not, and it works more like a regular hotel. But this brand has always been about free breakfast. Again, like we talked all about how these hotel companies are trying to make it cheaper for their owners, and I think this is an example of that. It's just a bad idea. Hyatt Place should have free breakfast, price it in. Okay to make people book direct. I totally agree, but hopefully this doesn't spread anymore. But yeah, 4 years in, do they not have the data? Are we just going to have a weird Hyatt Place here or there that charges, which to your point, just messes up the whole brand?
Yeah, and I wonder if this is like certain owners have pushed back and got this as like a concession and they call it, we're testing it to make them happy. I don't know. It's just stupid because Hampton Inn, Embassy Suites, all the other ones that you're competing against in this market are not doing anything like this. And their breakfasts are usually better. So don't be cheap. You're supposed to be a premier brand. Hyatt, I know Hyatt Place isn't a premier brand within your portfolio, but the Hyatt name is supposed to carry weight in being above everybody else. And this is the cheapest thing, of any hotel of what they're doing.
And please, no more powdered eggs. Please, real eggs. Good stuff. All right, so let's talk about credit card news. The Chase Sapphire Preferred has a new offer. Not really sexy on the surface, 60,000 points after 4,000 spend. That's pretty normal, but also a $300 Chase travel credit. That's good for a year, which could be worth $300, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not the great. I'd rather have 80,000 points, which we've seen in the past. Booking through travel portals can be treacherous. It adds another cog in the wheel, and if things go wrong, it can be a real pain in the butt. So, and the prices aren't always the same. Sometimes they're cheaper, but oftentimes they're a bit more expensive. Chase is doing this because they're getting a kickback. They're the travel agency. So instead of Expedia getting that 30%, if you book through Chase Travel, they're getting it. So this $300 costs them a lot less because they're getting a portion of that back. If you are going to use it, I would say try to do it on like car rentals or experiences. I know you've booked experiences through the Chase Travel portal. So stuff like that. Flights can get messy. Hotels, sometimes they lose the reservations or you miss out on like a Hyatt Place not getting the breakfast if you don't book directly. So I would focus on those areas.
Basically, if you ever need a refund for anything with Chase Travel, it is a pain, whether it's experiences and the operator cancels. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt. I do use it still from time to time for that sort of stuff, but it is a pain if anything goes wrong. And I have walked away from points before. I will just say that for like a tour that I booked that wasn't that much that the operator canceled and I tried to get the points back and it just became too time consuming. So Chase Travel, not my favorite, but let's stay on Chase. And Hyatt also has a new welcome offer for their credit card, and it's 5 free category 1 through 4 nights as a sign-up bonus. I was trying to think about this. what would be the point equivalent where you would take the points over the 5 free nights? Category 4 is up to 18,000 in peak, so I guess you could get 90,000 value out of it. Standard would be 75,000 point value out of it. What would you take in points instead of these certs so you weren't locked into the expiration date?
Yeah, that's the key here. Like if you have travel plan that you think that this will work very well, like if you're going to Orlando and you wanted to stay at the Grand Cypress, something like that for 5 nights, it could be easy. And you're looking at that 75 to 90,000 point range, most likely. If it's off peak, it drops down even lower than that. But you really need to use these in a category 3 or category 4 to make it worth it. And, the points, I'd probably say if it was like the same amount of spend and they were giving me 50,000, maybe 60,000 for sure. I think right in that range, if they were offering points, I'd take that over the free night certs.
I was thinking 60,000, so we're right on the same page there. So that's your sort of thing you have to decide when you're looking at this card. This offer is good through the end of October. We will see a points offer again in the future, so you just got to determine if that makes sense. This is a really good card. You get a free night every year, get a free night after 15,000 in spend. I think most people in the hobby do have this card.
Yeah, I think it's a great long-term card. And I did a write-up on Travel on Points that like kind of broke down, hey, if you're going to use it here, you need to get at least this many nights. I think most people will come out ahead. I'd love them to just bring back like a straight 50K offer like they used to have back in the day. Oh man, remember the days of the 2 free night certs that were category 7s? Whew, that was great.
Yeah, beautiful. Let's get us 100K. Come on, you got all these great offers coming out on ink cards. Just give us 100K on Hyatt. But there's so much Chase news. Let's talk about this. Sapphire Reserve added Air Canada Maple Leaf lounges and Air Canada cafes all around Canada, some in the US and Europe. You get access for the cardholder and the authorized user, but not guests. So guests have to pay, and you have to be flying on Star Alliance or Air Canada, which is part of Star Alliance.
So kind of useless.
I mean, if you're in Canada, I can see this being good.
Yeah, and I think there's only like 3 or 4 locations in the US, so a bit tougher to use for people, but people love the Aeroplan program and booking and all that stuff, so you're probably flying Star Alliance if you like the program. So it might be useful if you're positioning to Canada to fly somewhere else, or if you're just going to Canada, stuff like that. I mean, it stinks that you don't get any guest access. That kind of is a drawback. Most of the time, you're not flying by yourself. It definitely brings it down a bit, but hey, having more access is always a good thing for the cardholder.
And it's not cheap for guests. It's 59 US dollars or 59 Canadian dollars, or if you're in Europe, it's 59 euros. So guests are going to pay a lot. This really is a benefit only for the main cardholder or the authorized user. Of course, they have tons of lounges in Canada, and then in the US, LAX, LaGuardia, SFO. And then in Europe, you have Frankfurt and London Heathrow. So that is your choice. I guess it's an improvement. More lounges is good.
Yeah, everybody should avoid Frankfurt if they can anyway. But I hate that airport. That guest fee is a lot. And we should say the authorized user cards come with a hefty fee too. But yeah, if you are flying Air Canada or Star Alliance, at least you have another option there to you if you're transitioning through one of these areas.
Over the last decade, we've seen a lot of services and apps that sort of pop up to serve the traveler, and that's become more and more prevalent. And I feel like today you have so many apps all over the place, but back in the day, you really didn't. And LoungeBuddy was one of the first ones. It provided reviews and in-depth analysis of all the amenities at different lounges. It was a great app and service started by somebody in this community, and he sold it to American Express, made a lot of money. They took it and did some weird things with credits on certain cards, but never really did much with it. And then LoungeBuddy name kind of just faded away, and lounges are more popular than ever, but American Express is shutting down LoungeBuddy.
Yeah, and we've seen this before, with brands buying these apps that were useful or beneficial and then just not knowing what to do with it, thinking, oh, this will be easy. We'll just turn it into this. We'll charge some people some things, or we'll give it as a credit on our cards and we'll add a perk or whatever. They don't put the full weight of their brand behind it, so it never goes anywhere. And I feel like that's kind of what happened here. They just never really grew it or focused on it. The credit with the green card, I don't think anybody ever even really talked about it. But it could be useful. Like you could buy lounge access to a lounge you didn't have access to, and you would get the credit reimbursed to you, which is kind of a cool system. When you think about it, it might be better than having Maple Leaf Lounge access, because you can pick and choose where you want to go when you want to use it. And it just never really went anywhere, which is sad.
Yeah, you could also buy passes right in the app for different lounges and stuff, even if you didn't have the credit. There was definitely some usefulness to this, but I don't know. Once American Express bought it, it just seemed to disappear other than in their marketing terms. And I don't really know anybody who uses it in theory. So Goodbye, LoungeBuddy. It's a new quarter, and that means that Chase has a new set of offers for their cardholders. These are really cool because they are targeted, meaning that you may or may not get them, but they are across a wide variety of cards, and you can check to see what you get. And oftentimes you'll get 5x or even up to 7x on different categories, on different amounts of spend. According to Travel on Points and UMark, there are some new offers: 5x on grocery stores, restaurants, Amazon. There's a 7x offer on up to 1,000 in spend, and some other ones in different categories as well.
Yeah, and they always have like random ones. Like they had the HBO Max offer last quarter, which I'm sure everybody is excited to be gone, so that their card has a chance to get something else. And I think this time around, it's like utilities or something. If you spend $100, you get 10 or 15 bucks, which is more useful and definitely an option. So if you go and check your card and it says you've already activated this and you don't remember, it's probably that one. Otherwise, I think that ends in the next week or two. So I would go back and check your card again if it came up that way. If you say, sorry, I don't see anything, that means you weren't targeted. But it's worth checking a couple times throughout the quarter. Sometimes they roll out a bit later, or like I said, you had a previous offer that hadn't quite fallen off yet. But if you get the 5 times offer, they're really great. I got them halfway through last year. I got them on both our Hyatt cards and was able to rack up, a good chunk of miles. It's always awesome when those happen. And then it paired up with my 15K free night spend, so it was like a double dip in that way too.
This is a great time of year for these offers, and more offers coming out. Lots of spending offers will come, so pay attention to that. Love this time of year. Our next story kind of makes me sad. Virgin Atlantic has announced that they're going full revenue based. They're basically, the award price of tickets is going to be based on what the cash price is, and we don't know what the value of the points are going to be, but basically they're trying to say this is a good thing, meaning you can get any seat on the plane. Of course, it's going to cost you millions of miles. This is never a good thing.
Yeah, it is bad. I mean, Southwest is the one that probably does it the best, and people are just okay with it. They usually keep the value somewhat up there, where when you see like a Delta, it's more towards 1 penny, and Southwest is more like 1.3, 1.4, somewhere in there. The downside is Virgin already is somewhat a useless program for their own flights because the taxes and fees are so high. When they run those promos and you're getting them half off, maybe then it makes sense. But to book a flight through them already, it's, they're already below everybody else. Maybe they'll drop the fees and stuff into it so you can use points towards that more so. Maybe that would be useful. They did say that they'll have Saver Award prices or below on every flight. Well, we don't know, is that going to be 2 seats, 4 seats, 12 seats, whatever it be, and we'll have to see how that works in theory. But the big question is, do you think they roll this out to partner awards next?
I mean, I think this is the way the whole world is going. So, yeah, I mean, they're not going to give more generous awards to partners. Maybe not at first. We'll see, because sometimes things like this stagger and take time. But yeah, it's not going to be good, especially with Virgin Atlantic. I feel like anytime that they make changes lately, it's bad.
And it feels like they've been doing it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking about it a lot. So we'll hold our breath, but it's going to be bad. But let's talk about this. This is good. You went to Albuquerque to the famous Balloon Festival, which I've wanted to go to for years, and saw your videos on social media, pictures. It looked incredible.
You didn't say cool S.
Oh, crap.
We were there this past weekend. I think it was like the first weekend of the fiesta, and it goes on for a couple weeks. And something that is unique in the U.S. and Turkey's very big for this. And I think there's even a balloon festival in Reno, somebody said. So maybe that one's another good one to hit. But each state usually has a smaller one, but this is a pretty massive setup. And I know we're going to talk about it in more depth on the MTM travel podcast, but figured that it was worth just highlighting this. You can show some of the videos from it, and really cool experience. I would say if you're deciding between morning and evening, definitely go to morning. You do have to get up at like 4 in the morning or get on the road by 4 in the morning, but you get to see all the balloons go up, where at night it was kind of a disappointment. They just light up a couple, and if it's windy, they don't light up all of them, and didn't have the same feeling as watching balloons fly in the sky. And I got to see it going down the highway to the airport in the morning, and it looked like some of them were going to hit buildings and run into our cars and stuff. It was kind of crazy.
I'm so afraid of heights. I can't wait to talk to you more about this on the MTM podcast. And let's talk about that, because it's going to be on this channel as well. We should announce our big changes, including a second show on this channel coming out every Monday. And that's going to be our long form podcast. The Miles to Memories podcast existed, and Mark used to co-host it with me. And now we're going to bring that show to 20-minute travel. So you'll have this new style show, 20 minutes, all the latest offers, everything that we just did in this show. And then you'll have a longer form conversation, fun, our travels, our lives, everything. So we're looking forward to bringing that show to YouTube starting next Monday.
Yeah, and this is a great one to kick it off with. And I have a lot of travel through the end of the year. I know Sean does as well. So we should have a lot of good stuff to talk about, teach you tips and tricks along the way, and kind of dive into it a bit more in depth than we do here.
So leave a comment. Let us know what you think about anything we talked about today. Look for the new show next Monday. That'll be a lot of fun. And then going forward, Monday and Wednesday, we're still figuring out the schedule. So we may tweak that a little bit, but you're going to have 2 shows a week on 20-minute travel. You can also listen to both of those as podcasts as well. But let us know about the card offers we talked about, Hyatt Place breakfast, everything else we discussed. Leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time.
Have a good one.
So I have a perfect job for you, Mark, to be the CEO of Ramada. Ramada, really?
I used to call it Ramada back then when I was a kid.
Yeah. I don't know where that came from. I don't think I've ever called it Ramada. All right. To be the CEO of, now I can't say, I got it. To be the CEO of Ramada and not the CEO, the chief executive.